I will now call back to order the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education meeting for November 12th, 2024. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Dr. Venson?
Here.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Here.
Ms. Helms?
Here.
Mr. Burns?
Here.
Ms. Zinser?
Here.
Is Mr. Noble still virtual or no?
Thank you. I would like to invite everyone to join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. So our board president, John Noble, is away on business this evening, so I am filling in for him, and I will be sharing the president's report. I am pleased to share tonight's report on behalf of Board President John Noble, who was participating remotely, but I think had to drop off at this point. During this evening's meeting, you will hear Superintendent Dr. Matthew Montgomery and Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Principal Dr. Aaron Lennart share highlights of the 2024 Illinois State Report Card. While there's always more work to be done, we have much to celebrate in this year's results, demonstrating ELA, math, and science growth, and placing LFHS in the 99th percentile of all Illinois high schools. Dr. Montgomery and Dr. Lennart will have more specifics on the 2024 report card and data, so I will not steal their thunder. Tonight, I would like to offer a few remarks about the road we have traveled to get here and the priorities that serve as our foundation. In July of 2021, just 4 years ago, Dr. Montgomery and Dr. Lennart joined our school community in their respective roles. At that time, the board charged them with building upon the excellence of existing pedagogy and programs at our high school and evolving in new ways that would prepare our students for the world that awaits them. With this in mind, Dr. Montgomery initiated the Portrait of a Learner visioning process, engaging more than 150 community members from Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and Knollwood to develop a unified vision for the 21st century competencies that today's students need to succeed in college, career, and beyond. With the portrait as a backdrop, Dr. Montgomery and Dr. Lennart then led a community-wide strategic planning process, resulting in a 5-year roadmap and metrics defined in our board priorities to measure our progress. We are in year 2 of this plan. Dr. Lennart's team of LFHS faculty and staff have used this framework as the foundation for SIP, our faculty-led school innovation and improvement planning, reaping the initial results that are reflected in the 2024 report card. Suffice it to say, it has been a very intentional process that will continue as we work toward achieving our board priorities of academic excellence, portrait of a learner competencies, and a school climate and culture grounded in well-being. Dr. Lennart and her team are creating a more personalized approach to learning with scaffolded supports that meet every student where they are, honoring their unique circumstances and defining each student's unique pathway toward growth. This is work Aaron's team does proactively and in partnership with our Scout families. It sets us apart in ways that our report card may not fully capture yet. In fact, I am told that our peer schools are contacting our staff to learn more about this work being done in our building and in our classrooms. The word is out that exciting things are happening for all students at Lake Forest High School. I speak on behalf of the entire District 115 Board of Education when I congratulate the progress being made at Lake Forest High School, not just for our highest academic achievers, but for all students. We celebrate the leadership of our superintendent and principal, the path we are on, and the tireless efforts of our faculty, staff, and students and their families as we work together to make Lake Forest High School a place for everyone. This concludes the President's report. I would now like to turn the meeting over to the spotlight. Do you want to tee this up a little bit, Erin?
So, as I've mentioned in previous board meetings, for this year's spotlights, we really wanted to focus on One Lake Forest High School, and particularly all of the opportunities, even beyond academics, but sort of in alignment with academics. I was just observing, actually, in Mr. Mann's classroom this week, and I saw, I think, pieces of the work that he does with extracurricular activities as well. And of course, in observing Mr. Krenitsky seeing the same thing in his classroom, too. So we are going to have our spotlight tonight be our Model UN and our mock trial group.
Hi, I'm Drew Krenitsky. I'm a social studies teacher at the high school, of course. I was a part-time teacher last year. This is my first full-time year teaching civics, sociology, and world history and geography. And so I've been asked to lead this club, Model United Nations. For those of you who don't know, the purpose of the club is to model the United Nations, meaning simulating the parliamentary procedure that the international community uses to deal with foreign policy and current issues. So I think the best thing to do is let the students speak for themselves on how they feel about those experiences. And then, Mr. Krenitsky, this is Eddie. Do you want to share how long you've been in the club?
I've been in Model UN for 3 years at this point.
And then
I'm Bridget, and I'm a freshman, so this is my first year doing Model UN.
Overall, I think Model UN really helps with gaining confidence in public speaking and also gaining more knowledge about world history and events.
I spoke at a public event the other day and I felt better about it because I had been to a conference last weekend and speaking in the club when you volunteer to do it.
I think a lot of our social studies classes provide an important foundation for Model UN and general knowledge about the world, which comes from world history and geography and many other social studies classes that kids take.
You're communicating with other people, but also learning how to communicate with people who you don't necessarily agree with their views on things.
Incredibly important to synthesize different opinions almost to make sure that you can put together a bunch of needs and wants of other countries and combine them so everyone's happy.
It's what part of your beliefs you're willing to sacrifice and others you're willing to let go of in order to make everybody agree on something or make benefit the greater good.
It's really great, especially if you go to conferences, for making friends outside of Lake Forest and getting to know people who aren't necessarily in the Lake Forest community, but rather outside of it. And that's something conferences always benefit.
For me, it's because I'm a freshman, it's been really great to be able to make friendships with people who are upperclassmen, seniors, juniors, even sophomores who I would never meet. For me to make friendships with older people who have more experience and can help me, and I can also give a new perspective to them.
It's debate, but there's a little bit of an acting element in there too. And we get to have this kind of very specific way of looking at debating, and the style is very engaging.
As a janitor, do you have any experience cleaning in the theater department of the school?
A couple of times I've been asked to fix the props tonight.
So it's oftentimes people really do enjoy the mock trial format. Hi, I'm Nicholas Pizzo. I'm the president of Mock Trial. I think a lot of people came in with either some law experience or they watched Suits. And that's where really we start. But then when we start looking at the more information-based stuff, when we're talking about specific objections or specific rules of evidence, you do really get into the actual substance of the law. I'm super excited to go into the state case this year. This year it's a criminal case rather than a civil case. At our club, we've had the great opportunity to have 2 practicing lawyers who have come in recently and last year to really talk about how the process works in a more professional sense and to help us out. And then at the competitions that we go to, we get to meet all of these actual practicing judges. And even we did one competition where we were in the actual courthouse, which was really fascinating. So it's really a good opening to a law degree career would eventually look like.
So we're preparing for our mock trial here. We have our prosecution table here, our defense table there, defense witnesses in the corner, prosecution witnesses here in the back middle. These 2 here are working on direct examination. Carly is a defense attorney and Maeve is playing the role of the defense expert witness. We have our sequestered jurors in here working on some other material as the rest of our group prepares for the mock trial. So this was kind of a fun moment when Steve Douglas stopped into my class, and the students here are preparing for our mock trial that's going to be happening in about a week. Dr. Lennart was also in class yesterday when we had a pretrial motion to debate an evidentiary issue for that mock trial. But more broadly, as Dr. Lennart mentioned, I'm Alex Mann. I teach business law at the high school. This is my second year at Lake Forest. I grew up in the community. I graduated from the high school in 2002 and spent about 10 and a half years practicing law, and wanted to pursue a change, and actually started coaching here. I'm an assistant football coach about 4 years ago, and was lucky enough to get a student teaching opportunity in 2021 and then a full-time teaching opportunity last year. And really, we do a lot more than just the mock trials in our law class. I mean, it's a component of it, but the whole second semester we're focused on business and civil law, and we do all types of different simulations around business formation and entity formation and things of that nature. So we really give students a broad exposure to kind of different areas of the law, and they hear from different speakers who come in and talk about their practice areas and things of that nature. So I think Drew and I would both be happy to take any questions you have if there are any. And
Does anyone have any questions?
Model United Nations. It's my understanding as a Lake Bluffer that Deer Path has a really good Model UN program in middle school, and that it does a phenomenal feeding job into the Model UN at the high school. And I'm not so sure that 65 has a similarly robust program. I'm curious if you've had the experience where it doesn't seem to draw the Lake Bluff kids, or if that's a relic of a long time ago.
It's not my experience right now. It is my third month in the position, but I am passionate about the topic. In my brief time leading the club, it's been so inspiring to see how passionate the students are about the topic. But I think that to answer your question with more depth, I would need to have more institutional memory of the club to speak to that, and I don't want to give you a misleading answer. So.
I think that your classes look like they would be so much fun. I'm jealous I didn't have things like this when I was a kid. Like, I watched Suits. I mean, I think I would have liked the class.
we don't watch Suits in the club or in class. I just want to clarify that.
All right, well, thank you so much
If I
for
could
being
just
here
take a
and
second,
sharing.
and I failed to also, I don't have to introduce Mr. Douglas, who we know has been new media extraordinaire, but has taken on career pathways. And his joining them is because these are career pathways that he supports, especially with law. Since Mr. Mann has come on board, the program, our law program and our courses have grown beyond a full-time position. So he came into a part-time law position, and it's grown beyond the full-time position. We were actually having to turn students away from it because we didn't know who else could teach the law classes, and we were trying to scramble to figure that out. But a lot of that is Mr. Mann's leadership, being a practicing lawyer and coming in-house. And this is something that Mr. Douglas pushed for as he's building out the pathways. So we're already seeing all of the work that you've done in the first 2 years. We're going to be happy to give our report in the spring, where we're going to be able to share even more news around career pathways and your leadership in that. But I failed to introduce Mr. Douglas, who really has been inspirational in this work. So, and he was supposed to introduce them, and then I forgot. It came up, so
You did a great
I
job.
apologize.
And can I ask, are there plans to incorporate an AP course in that track, or is that a resource issue?
Absolutely. So whenever we're thinking about getting the law career pathway, we have to think about not just the law classes, but what other courses would align with it. And that's where Mr. Douglas will come in and work with the state to see if which AP courses might align to get the actual career pathway endorsement. Not surprisingly, we just had so many students in this community who were so excited about law. And now we're offering it as dual credit as well, which is the equivalent to something that would be AP, the dual credit, which would mean they're getting college credit for it. And that's because we have a practicing lawyer or a practitioner who is teaching the class. So kudos.
Fantastic.
Please don't feel like you need to stay. So this is a great opportunity if you want to be with your family. You may stay, though, if you'd like.
We're happy for you to stay.
But don't feel guilty about leaving.
You guys can follow Steve. Steve knows the drill. I'm gone.
I wish I could go with you. No, I'm just kidding.
So, Dr. Montgomery, you're up. Superintendent's
I
report.
guess I'm staying then.
You're staying.
Okay, thank you for your kind attention.
Do you need this, or are you just going to go from your computer? Okay.
So I have a couple topics to cover today. The first one I'd like to celebrate, and I'm going to start the conversation. Jenny touched on it as well, and then Aaron will go a little deeper into the topic. But just a congratulations to the faculty and to the students on an exemplary designation for the 2024 report card. This is the highest ranking that we could get from the state, and we're proud of it. What that means is, this is the tagline we've been using, the 99th percentile for achievement and the first percentile for taxes in Illinois. And we will say it over and over, that we are certainly delivering an ROI that the community can be proud of. And as Jenny said, we are not done yet. There is plenty of work ahead and great things on the horizon. On October 30th, the first learning walk happened at the high school. We started learning walks last year in '67, and we included members from the Superintendent Advisory Council, and that council makes up members of both the 67 and 115 communities. And we saw last year Everett, and we saw Everett Elementary and Sheridan. This year so far we have seen Cherokee and DPM, and now the high school. We will see the high school again in the spring. If you see those dates come across our calendar, I would invite you all. The board is always invited. It's during the school day and the work day, so sometimes it's difficult for you to be there, but if you have an opportunity, please know that you're welcome. We've expanded the invite to not only the Superintendent Advisory Council, the board, but also now the APT Executive Board of the building that we're visiting, as well as the Spirit or the Foundation Executive Board, to get more people in the classroom. I will tell you that the tour was met with wonderful feedback because not only did the participants get to see what was happening in the classroom, but they had the opportunity to have conversations with the instructional directors, as well as Dr. Sasson and Dr. Lennard, about what was happening with our plans, construction, strategic plan, and more. And I was exceptionally prideful in that experience. An upcoming event I want to draw your attention to is a community forum around the progress of construction, and that will be on December 12th at the RMA at 6:30 p.m. A point of note, the board already knows, but I want to bring to the community's attention, the Phase 1 bids will be presented to the board just 2 days prior to this on December 10th, and we scheduled this forum intentionally that we would have the results of those bids to share the most up-to-date information with the community, not only in the enabling phase, but the Phase 1 construction, which is set to begin in the spring, around $60 million worth of work that will occur over 2 years' time. These are celebrations of incredibly generous members of our community. Last month, I talked about the amazing anonymous donation for the varsity field scoreboard and sound system. That donation created an excitement or a buzz that brought forward the boosters donating baseball and softball scoreboards. The baseball scoreboard was just installed last week. The softball will be installed in the weeks ahead. We had Fred and Laura Marks come forward. This is Classic Toyota out of Waukegan. They donated just recently a security car for the district. The Classic Toyota and the Marks came forward with reseeding and grading of the baseball and softball fields. That has already taken place. that will have the fields looking at their highest level they've looked in a while for next season. So I talked about this in the foundation this morning. Actually, somebody asked the question, do you think that the anonymous donation is creating more buzz of people who are coming forward? And the answer is a resounding yes, of what we just shared tonight. And we have met with PALS, Applause, and the boosters now just this fall to talk about future collaborations. This is a great place to be a part of in a community that is very giving. And I will finish today's presentation with how the community is giving to areas that are less fortunate to us. So you have a giving community that's also donating within, but also outwards to make sure that we are celebrating everyone, regardless of your means. This was our Veterans Day Assembly. In Ohio, we often had Veterans Day off. So it was exceptionally special when I moved here that we have an opportunity to have Veterans Day where it's open, where we can celebrate our veterans and educate our young people of the importance of service. Yesterday's assembly was beautifully done, and our guest speaker was 67 board member, who is Carl Carrar, who was a commander in the U.S. Navy, and Carl did a stupendous job in his presentation. And he represented not only the Navy well, but the Board of Education and our community. Finish with the Grateful Market, which is our contribution, one of our many contributions to those less fortunate. So there's about a 1-minute video. If you could please indulge me, I will tell that story via video. Tom for that video. Did he put that together? Tom, as a new member of the communications team, continues to do amazing work, and I just want to thank him publicly because sometimes these stories via video do a much better job at completely explaining what this is all about. So thank you to him and Melissa for your work on this. And also a shout out to Annie, because this has been a project that's been near and dear to her and her family for a while now, and I just want to celebrate her leadership in making some of this possible. I will finish with, normally we celebrate you in January, I think, but I have been informed that in Illinois, the school board members' day is November 15th. I did not, well, maybe I wasn't aware. I think that this is going to be the year we're going to celebrate you twice, so congratulations. Just a moment of gratitude for all of you. You know my involvement nationally, and I hear stories of superintendents who are going through significantly difficult times because of fractions and fractals of relationships with board members, and I continue to count my blessings. As they say in White Christmas, count your blessings instead of your sheep, and I will tell you that I continue to count 14 of mine, which is the members of both 67 and 115. So thank you, and we will do it again because you deserve recognition, because this is a thankless job. So stay tuned for January for more appreciation. That concludes my superintendent's report. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Matt. So Dr. Lenart, the Assistant Superintendent Principal's report, please.
Awesome, and I just have to figure out, this is the first time we're driving from our, let me see, right here? Is that what I do? All right. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, hi, happy November. To begin my report, I am going to talk about the school report card for the bulk of it. But before I get started with that, I just wanted to celebrate a few items and then also talk briefly about my time as principal in residence this past month. If you did not get to see the Fan Scout and I think the District 411, it was a ton of fun. I worked with our custodial staff in the morning, and I tell them, don't do anything special for me. I am here to do exactly what you do. I left those first 4 hours with a public service announcement that parents need to be telling their children to clean up after themselves because let me tell you, the cafeteria is a mess. And that's something that certainly the custodians were thankful that I noticed how thankless their job often is. But it was a ton of fun. We went out, we did the trash compactor, we moved walkways, these big silver moving walkways together. It was a lot of fun and a lot of hard work. And I think we overlook sometimes those people who are behind the scenes but doing so much for a school community. In the afternoon, I had a ton of fun because I got to work with our building and grounds crew.
Made me very nervous, and I was checking liability policy providers.
I may have messed up the mowing pattern for a little bit, because they allowed me to mow the big field out front. It was so fun. And the baseball field, I couldn't believe it, in the softball field, because they have to be pristine. But they gave me a lawnmower, allowed me to mow, forgave me all my mistakes, and I kept having to go in circles. And then at the end of my time with them, they gave me the front loader for me to front load the fencing for the football game, and I front loaded it, backed it up, and moved it into place. So that is hard work as well. Even driving the front loader takes all your might because you have to have both your legs and all your arms. And I left that job, had a great time, laughed a lot with them, and left that work so much more appreciating the cycle of building and groundskeep that goes on, talking to them about in the summer how it's twice a week. It's a lot of work to make sure that our school is as pristine as it is. But definitely, I think, an experience we should all do because it was a ton of fun.
No,
The principal.
Dr. Hermes and I do not endorse anybody doing that. And also Dr. Lennart now has a handler to make sure that she never does it again.
It is a principal in residence. This has been something this year. It's just been an opportunity for me to get out, learn more about some of the work that I've never known and I know is very important, but then also be reminded of the hard work going on in our classrooms and in our offices too, and maybe some of those areas that I've not been able to touch in quite some time. So next up, I believe I'm going to be principal in residence with special education. So that will be next month. Looking forward to that. Couple celebrations. Dr. Montgomery also already mentioned Veterans Day. I have to yearly, of course, mention Veterans Day not only as the spouse of a retired United States Army officer, but also because my dear friend, who I call out each year, her 3 sons who served or have served in the United States Army. I think that that's just an awesome gift. And then learning from the slide deck about just a legacy in your family, Miss Oakley, and how thankful we are for you in the community and the service. I know that's a product of you and Bill and how you've raised your voice. So thank you for that too. Veterans Day is a special time. It's just wonderful to be in a community that celebrates it in the way that we do. We also had our first day of service, the Grateful Market that Dr. Montgomery mentioned, but also we had a day of service for our PSAT Day. And MSQT Day. Students could opt into different service projects that we had going on. We had wonderful participation. We were wondering if we were going to have enough projects for them by the end of it because we had so many students, smiles. They were putting candy together for children in need. They were doing Grateful Market work. They were coloring for Christmas boxes that would be made for another group of children in need. And it was just a wonderful day seeing our teachers, coming down with their classes and lending a hand to. A wonderful day that really came to fruition because we had a couple parents who had a dream, worked with us, and brought this to life. So hopefully in future years we'll see that expand, especially I think that's an important day because it is a day of testing for certain students and for other students just to understand the value of service too. We have had a tremendous fall athletic season. I had to write down all of the wonderful things that have happened. Soccer, conference champs for NSC, boys golf, tennis, field hockey, cross country, all clapped out to state with field hockey winning second in states. Just a tremendous, tremendous showing from them. Football is moving on to quarterfinals this weekend with Geneva. That will be a home game. That will be televised as well. It's on the WGIU, I think. They'll have a crew of 20 here. I will be interviewed at halftime. I'm a nervous wreck. I just found out about this. We will have a teacher who's featured on it, as well as our coaches, Mr. Burkhalter, our athletic director. It's going to be a big deal. And we're really excited to host, and we're excited to be featured as well. We had since our last board meeting, we had our fall play with One Stoplight Town. What a tremendous play. And again, seeing those students I saw from 9th grade now as seniors in these lead roles has been, for me, it's one of the joys of being in the school, is seeing these students grow and seeing them grow into themselves. And then we have our freshman and sophomore play, The Alibis, coming up this weekend. So hopefully you got your tickets for that too. We're doing Cinderella in the spring for the musical, so we expect that to sell out. So wonderful time to be at Lake Forest High School, lots of fun things happening. So now I'm going to talk about the annual report card report. And I have to say, I can get as into the weeds with this as you can possibly imagine, because there are so many indicators, there's so much data on the Illinois State report card, and there's more to come. They keep adding data. I'm going to try to keep it high level with the reminder that in board meetings and ed committee meetings in the future, we actually talk about some of those really important indicators in depth, in longer presentations with different staff members and different school leaders coming forward to talk about them. So I'll give you a high-level overview, getting into the weeds on some things, some current projects, some current work, as well as our thinking around some future indicators too. First of all, I wanted to start with the two plans, plan and priority, that is essential to District 115, because I know we've talked about this in board meetings, we've talked about this in ed committee, but I want to keep, anytime I have the opportunity to remind the community, whether it be at APT, Foundation, any meeting I'm in, that there is a strategic plan that our District 115 board has, and there are board priorities that were adopted last spring. I think it's important that we continue to put that message front and center, that the work of improving Lake Forest High School has been the work of the board and the work of this leadership team for the last 4 years. And by improving, I mean improving on excellence that already exists. It's improving on people who are already doing tremendous work and putting the right people doing the tremendous work in leadership roles so that they can lead, and empowering them to lead. And so with that strategic plan, of course, we have the 3 goals. It's available online. But the metric that I really want to focus on is something I'm going to come back to at the end of the report card presentation. And that is that metric around college and career ready as defined by Distinguished Scholar, and then those college and career pathway seals. I'm going to come back to that because we adopted that goal 2 years ago. It's going to be on the report card, I think, starting next year, if not starting next year or the year after. So Illinois is actually, and they've created a dashboard for this. They are holding students or schools accountable for Distinguished Scholar indicators as well as college and career pathway endorsements. And that's something that we already envisioned 2 years ago. And a lot of that is the leadership of the board to see into the future. Knowing what's best for students is for us to recognize their many, many different talents. The second piece are the board priorities. We just talked about in board workshop our district dashboard around these specific priorities. That's something that we as a leadership team have been tasked to do. Ms. Oakley's shop has really led the work and design of. We're hopefully going to be ready to launch that dashboard, which is our progress towards the board priorities, in the coming, 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe even sooner. It's almost ready. We just want to do a little bit more in revising it. But with the board priorities, these really are the nested goals within the strategic plan. These are the indicators that our community has been most interested in, and that we're most interested in making sure that we are clearly and transparently reporting on. And those include things like the ACT, was SAT, now ACT, and our students' progress towards proficiency, AP, and our students' participation in AP courses, as well as dual credit courses, making sure we're increasing those opportunities for all students, because we understand and value our students participating in college courses. as far as their readiness when they go on to college, as well as Portrait of a Learner, making sure we're clearly articulating Portrait of a Learner and those competencies and how we're assessing students, and then making sure our students are involved in extracurricular activities too. Though there are actual metrics towards those goals that are really the community's goals that will be found in the board, that are found in our board priorities as well. So these are really the things that drive our work. So as we celebrate the school report card, the hard work of our staff, really hard work of our students, it's really important that we understand it's because of the leadership and vision of the board who has intentionally invested in the students in this way as well. And then we are given permission to lead, and we're so appreciative for that too. So as Dr. Montgomery said, we are exemplary for the third year in a row. And this is the highest of the standards that you can be in the state of Illinois, and we're very proud to be exemplary. And I think it's important for us all to understand that to be exemplary actually requires a number of different indicators. Sometimes all we focus in on are the academic indicators. So as we look at the schoolhouse graphic here, available through ISB, of course, we see in our academic indicators we continue to get a perfect percentage score in each one of those categories because it's the benchmark that Illinois sets for schools to reach proficiency. So in ELA proficiency, 7.5% of the 100% of the report card, we get 7.5% because we're meeting the Illinois benchmark. The same thing for math proficiency. Ninth grade on track is something that we should be ecstatic about. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in the presentation, but 100% of last year's ninth graders were on track to graduation. That's huge. That would mean that they're getting their 5 credits, and in any core class they did not receive an F more than one semester. So 100% of our students are on track, our ninth grade students on track to graduation. You might think, well, of course they are. But I would say look at our comparable schools and see if they can say the same things about ninth grade on track. And I know a lot of that is because of MTSS and the work of MTSS. And that's because if a student is struggling, we identify that student by name and need, and we work to give them supports as well. Another piece of our Illinois report card is EL Path to Proficiency. These are our English language learners. Notice we didn't get a perfect score there, but this is the first year of that indicator. The first year the indicator has gone live, and that's really about English language learners exiting the English language program within 5 years. So we have some work to do there, and we know we have some work to do with our English language learners, and that's evidenced in our report card, so we'll continue to work with that too. Chronic absenteeism, I know we are always touting our awesome rates and our attendance, and we don't have a perfect score. And that's because anything above 5%, you lose percentage points. So we're striving for 5 this year at Lake Forest High School. We are, if you look at any of our comparable schools, we're in the top 1%, 2% in the state with regards to our student attendance, but we want to make sure that we are doing all we can to stress the importance of being in school. We can't educate an empty seat. We're often saying that. Climate survey, you see that we've increased our climate survey percentage points. This is the CSCI, which we had a report on, I believe, in September or in October. This is just the participation rate. So this is that our students and our staff are actually participating. Why is that important? Because we use that data to assess whether or not the culture of Lake Forest High School is improving. It's important to note we actually went up in the number of students who participated because we, for the first time, had a school-wide administration of it during a school day. Now, we don't have a perfect score because we do have a number of students who opt out. So we are committed to educating the community on the importance of the CSCI in future years, or any climate survey, whether that be that or something else, in future years, because we do use that in order to plan for students year over year with regards to any sort of climate, positive behavior, any of that. And if we're missing an entire contingency of students, it's difficult for us to plan for them. So we do plan on doing a better job of educating the community on why that is so important to us. And then also you see with our graduation rate, we're among the highest in the state. We get a perfect score in that category. And then also in our, oh my gosh, why can't I read this? It's too tiny for me, huh? Oh, I'm sorry, science proficiency. I can't believe I couldn't read. I was like, is that a B? In our science proficiency, we were among the highest in the state on science proficiency this year, so we were thrilled to see 85% 85% participation, 86% pass. It's strange on the report card how it's actually reporting, but we were thrilled to see that. We're getting a perfect score on that as well. But we don't have 100 points, so that's where we need to work on some things, and I've shared that with the team too. All right, some big highlights that you may have already seen. Highest four-year graduation rate in Illinois, and that's selective and non-selective high schools. Top 1% of all non-selective enrollment schools. Science proficiency up 4%. Top 1 and 2nd among all non-selective enrollment schools in Illinois. SAT performance, 4% more students meeting or exceeding Illinois reading standards. 3% in math. Top 2% of Illinois schools for attendance. Our students are coming to school and they're learning, and we're doing all we can to make sure that they feel a sense of belonging, and I think that's evidenced in our report card. And here, of course, is when we look at a graphic like this, these are 68% is the proficiency rate of 11th grade students. Not all students in the building. Sometimes I feel like that isn't clear in communication that you may be reading. Not necessarily from us, but maybe communication you're getting from other sources as well. When we talk about students being proficient, we're saying 68% of 11th grade students, and we're talking about a 540 on the SAT for last year. A 540 is 60 points over what the College Board norm referenced, which is 480 for college readiness. Now, that's the same standard across the state. I'm not making excuses, but 68% proficiency on SAT, that is an increase in scores over last year. It's still, for us, not good enough. We know we've moved to ACT. That's why we have board priorities to increase that. 66% of math, again, it's an increase. It's still something that we're working towards. We would like to see a higher percentage, even by Illinois standards, showing proficiency in math. But we are thrilled that we are moving in that direction. And then again, with our science assessment and seeing our students performing among the top students in the state with our science assessment. Oh, I don't need this. So what's been happening? Again, top 1%. Attendance Matters has been a big campaign the last few years. That's been something where we have made it very clear to our students, whether it be through consequences, but hopefully through tough love, we like to call it, about the importance of coming to school so that we can make sure that they're given every opportunity to access their core content, access interventions, and access their teachers, whether that be through PLT or after school, as well as that sense of belonging with extracurricular activities. So that's been a huge campaign for us, one that we see now mirrored at other high schools almost identically, and we've seen those high schools actually improve as well in their attendance rates. So we're happy to share any of that work because the work of all high schools is the work of each one of us too. English language services, we've expanded. We have more teachers who are now certified to teach English language learners, and that's something that has given us the opportunity to expand our classroom opportunities for English language students. We've had some multilingual support periods that we have a multilingual specialist who has worked with teachers whenever they've been working with a student who has English language services. So we think that that's why we are seeing success in that path to proficiency even early on in that early metrics, being among probably the top 10% in the state in that percentage. Last year, we implemented an SAT diagnostic tool. This was something that was created in-house. And upon implementation of that, we've heard some tremendous, certainly anecdotal stories, but some that even you've heard in our Ed Committee meetings from parents whose students participated in last year's SAT diagnostic. What we saw was an average diagnostic and then subsequent intervention and tutoring. What we saw was between a 150 and 200 point increase on the SAT. That's incredible if they participated in both. So what we did with the transition to ACT, and I'm going to let Mr. Lesniak talk about this a little bit more in depth, we made an ACT diagnostic that we allowed our 11th grade students to opt into during the PSAT and MSQT day. Many of them did. Most of them actually did. We only had a third of our students taking the NMSQT, juniors. And that same diagnostic tool now has intervention that's tied to it. So these are students who are interested and motivated and want to improve their ACT scores, remembering that our students are more than ACTs and SATs. And we have families who might be making other choices, but we want to encourage every student who is interested in improving their scores. We want to make sure that we're encouraging them by offering these free services, and then not only encouraging them by offering the free services, but then also making sure that we are giving them other opportunities as well to find success if they want to choose into a different pathway too. Grammar and English, we actually implemented these grammar assessments that then the teachers go back, and this is huge for English writing. The teachers go back and teach the skills from the formative assessments. This has been something so successful that we've eliminated a senior course that was a composition course because we see the benefits of the English grammar work that's been happening. And then, of course, that CSCI school-wide administration, which was so important for just getting the participation rate up so that we could get some valid data. And then the school-wide initiatives that have come from that around upstanders, the upstander training, as well as the principles of respect. We think all of that is improving the climate of our school. So the current indicators that we have and planning for those, I just mentioned the ACT tool that Mr. Lesniak will show examples of next month when he comes for the assessment report. Something else that we're talking about, especially with college and career pathways and distinguished scholars that will show up later in the indicators in future years on future report cards. We are increasing internship opportunities for students, even working to make independent study and expansion upon that into some level of internship for our students to be able to go out in the community and intern with an attorney, for example, intern in the financial sector, and finding those opportunities for our students. So we've just begun the conversation around that. Capstone and service learning as far as Portrait of a Learner goes. I'm going to talk in just a moment about an upcoming presentation we're going to have that Dr. Fitzsimmons is leading alongside Mr. Dunn. We are continuing to find opportunities to expand dual credit and AP access. You just heard about law. But making sure that we find those opportunities for our students to see themselves in college courses in high school. That's important, and that's important for them to go on and see themselves in colleges in the future. Continuing to work on school climate, and then of course, we always continue to refine our MTS, our multi-tiered systems of support at Lake Forest, make them better, learner profiles. We've previewed in past board meetings, but really working with that diagnostic tool, how we marry in all the supports that we have to make sure that they're streamlined. And that's been the work of a few of our leaders in the building and a passion of theirs too. So for future indicators, and this kind of circles it back to the school, the strategic plan for District 115. We know that in our strategic plan, we hope that we will have more and more graduates who are distinguished scholars or are receiving those college and career pathway endorsements. 2 years ago, we committed to that as a district, and now we see these are the dashboards that ISB has developed on their site where they're starting to report out how many of your students are meeting the criteria for distinguished scholar and college and career pathways with the plan, and I have the sheet here, for that to become a percentage of your report card at some point. Now, what I've noticed is sometimes we don't exactly know when the percentage will happen, but what I do know is that because of the forward thinking of this district, we are starting the work already, and I believe we're light years ahead of many of the comparable districts on that. Another big piece of the indicator that we're keeping our eye on is the fine arts indicator. That's going to be the percentage of students who are participating in fine arts at Lake Forest High School. That will become a percentage of our report card in the very near future. So that's work that we're doing. We're starting to focus on not only participation, but also the level of mastery of the teachers who are teaching it too. So the work of next year's report card, which really is comprehensive, and there's way more than even what I've presented here. There's discipline data, there's disaggregated data by subgroup. One of the big pieces that we're focused on as a leadership team is looking at the academic achievement gaps. Why? Because in a lot of the proficiency that's lacking, we're seeing they're coming from certain subgroups. So then how are we working with our special education students, as an example, to make sure that they're given access, targeted access to the college readiness skills? Maybe that's something that needs to go through certain special education courses. That's actually on the ISB site as well. It will show achievement gap data. It shows it all. So there's a ton of data that's available out there too. Upcoming reports, these are just so that we all remember and are aware, and for anyone watching at home, we do plan on making sure that we are looking at most of the big indicators in depth. Next month, we'll have that big assessment report with Mr. Lesniak. We'll also do a preview of Portrait of a Learner with Ed Committee. I know it's a great picture up there, isn't it? That's our clue picture. We're in the library. In February, we'll do the college and career data. That's always something to celebrate with Dr. Sasson. We will do a formal portrait of a learner presentation with Dr. Fitzsimmons and Mr. Dunn in March, and all the work that's been going on around that. They're actually leading a meeting, Admin Advance, Thursday, where they are leading administrators in a conversation, 67, 65, and 115, in a conversation around the work that's already been done. So Dr. Fitzsimmons has been doing a tremendous job with that. And then in April, we will have that extracurricular and activity report with Ms. Malik and Mr. Burkhalter. So all of those, whether it be board priority, strategic plan, or the report card, you'll be able to see the tremendous work happening from individual leaders. So with that, that is the Illinois State report card, plus so much more that if you have questions, I can go into.
Wow.
It would be helpful if you could share a copy of the slides with the board, because I couldn't quite see them, and I don't think they were in our board packet. So it would be fun to go back and take a closer look.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So at this point in the meeting, it is the first opportunity for public participation. I do not see anyone from the public that joined us tonight to share, so we will move on. We do not have any reports this evening. We'll move on to our liaison reports with Ed Red and the well, we're not going to do Ed Red and the legislative updates. Because John Noble is not with us, he can go over these after he represents us at the Delegate Assembly at the III Conference, I think a week from Saturday. So Dave Burns, do you have anything to report on this parent support organizations? Okay.
No, I think we can probably, unless something comes up, I think we can probably remove it from the agenda, only because we kind of made John decided we're going to do this on demand. So I think we just need some updates. Same thing with the committees. Probably want to consider that because now it's a committee of the whole. So.
Right, unless there are any specific reports that need to be a part of this meeting.
Yep.
John Benson, do you have anything to share with us this month on True North?
No, they meet tomorrow night.
Okay, so we'll wait till next month to hear from you. Thank you. All right, we are already to our second public participation opportunity, but seeing, pardon me? No. Well, it's okay, I've got this. Okay, now moving on to action items. May I have, where the first action item is approval of the adoption of the 2024 tentative tax levy. May I have a motion to approve the adoption of the 2024 tentative tax levy?
So moved.
Second.
Jen, do we want to go into this? Do you want to wait till next month for the levy vote? Let you decide.
So we'll just hit it quickly here tonight because there is an important difference than you've noticed in the last 2 years, which is this year's levy is based on a CPI of 3.4%, which ultimately, when you put into our calculations, results in a 3.1% increase for the actual tentative tax levy. Because that number is under 5%, we are not required to do a levy hearing, so there will be no official hearing, which, remember, that was like before the regular meeting, typically in December. We would give a formal presentation. Still could be a presentation if you like, but there's no separate hearing for it, nor will there be any notice in the newspaper or any sort of publication, which is that black box notice, which is very prescribed. None of that is required now under Truth in Taxation because we're levying or putting forth a levy less than 5%. So that is a little bit different. I will just say, to put that into perspective, a 3.1% increase is approximately $154 on $1 million home.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
That's not for the month, that's for the entire year.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Benson?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Ms. Helms?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
May I have a motion to approve the
I'll say aye
May I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement with a former student to resolve their case pending in the Circuit Court of Lake County?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Zinser,
Aye.
Dr. Benson,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Helms,
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner,
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the contract with Barbara Marbury for the 2024-2025 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Aaron, do you want to, I don't know who wants to, you want to talk about this, Jen? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'll grab this one quickly. So this is for specific services, and they will be used for students that we don't have the in-house expertise to serve, just like we would do with other special education consultant services. This is in the area, I believe, of a specific reading issue that we want to address. So we would use this up to the amount approved by the board on the contract as needed in specific instances that it's called forth in the IEP.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Helms,
Aye.
Mr. Zinser, or Ms. Zinser, I'm sorry,
Aye.
Dr. Benson,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements, August 2024, approval of human resources report, approval of press issue 116, second reading, approval of IASB resolutions, approval of intergovernmental agreement for library services in the amount of $500, approval of donation recognition, approval of a regular meeting and workshop on August 13th, 2024, minutes of a budget hearing for the 2024 year, minutes of a regular meeting and workshop on September 10th, 2024, minutes of a regular meeting and workshop on October 15th, 2024, minutes of a joint policy meeting, August 29th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Zinser,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Helms,
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner,
Aye.
Dr. Benson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to FOIA requests. Owen Wang, 6 of 6 completed. Alexandra Saucedo, 2 of 2 completed. RJB, 1 of 1 completed. Madeline Bavakis, 1 of 1 completed. Gaffney and Gaffney Law, 1 of 1 completed. LFCB, 2 of 2 completed. Robert Dodson, 3 of 3 completed. Marie Campbell, 1 of 1 completed. Okay, well, there is another public participation. So there were just 3 inserted into my documents. So last chance for anyone who wants to step up and address the board.
Does that mean I
Think-
was right on that one?
Well,
Or the form
my
was wrong.
Or my notes were possibly slightly altered. Trying to cover for our board president, John Noble, by following the notes to the letter. Okay, so seeing no members of the public, we will move on to announcements. November 27th through 29th, 2024, no school Thanksgiving holiday. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And then Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, there will be a joint policy committee meeting here at Lake Forest High School's West Campus, Seminar B, from 5:15 to 7 p.m. And Tuesday, December 10th, this Board of Education will meet again at 7 p.m. here at Lake Forest High School's West Campus in the boardroom. May I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 board meeting for November 12th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a voice vote, please? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.